Let's get some perspective with the national president of the National Federation of Federal Employees, Randy Erwin. Randy, thanks so much for joining us, especially in person. Just to start, how many of your members are affected by this shutdown, and if you could tell us in which sectors?
Sure. Well, we have 110,000 federal employees that we represent nationwide. All of them are going to be affected because they're all going to have their pay shut off. It's hard to know exactly how many people are going to be furloughed and how many are going to be forced to work without pay until the shutdown ends. Last shutdown we had, it was pretty close to a 50-50 split in government. It remains to be seen this time. But it's going to be it depends on how long it goes. The longer it goes, it becomes exponentially bad for both workers and the American people. It remains to see how long it's going to go this time.
As you hear the White House say that layoffs to the federal workforce are imminent, what goes through your mind? What's your message to your members?
I'm appalled by that for the main reason because of the Anti-Deficiency Act. The executive branch, the agencies and the White House can't spend money that Congress hasn't appropriated. And so in any reduction in force or federal layoff, you have to spend money in order to do that. What that means is they don't have the right to do what they're saying they're going to do. And so that means one of two things or a combination of it. It means either they plan to do something that's illegal, and when the president has an obligation to faithfully execute the laws of this country, when they violate the law willfully, it's an unconstitutional act. And we've seen this president willing to do that. This would be another occurrence of him, violating the law and sorting it out later. The other thing that they could be doing is just intimidating and grading our dedicated federal employees in this country. Neither of those things are acceptable, and everybody in America should be appalled by that.
I do have some questions for you about impoundment and the argument from some in Congress that they should control the purse strings and not the executive. But I do want to get to a broader point, which is that the last time I remember seeing you here in studio was around the beginning of the year, during massive cuts to the federal workforce by DOJ. Given that, and given that a few months later we have this looming threat of further layoffs by OMB, what does that do to people who've decided that they want to dedicate themselves to serving the American people in the federal government? I mean, does it dissuade folks from service? Does it harm the care that the American people get?
Without question. It's devastating to morale within the federal government. It makes it near impossible to recruit and retain the talent that we need in the federal government to provide these services. It's hard enough in the federal government as it is because federal employees make 25% less on average than people in the private sector doing the same jobs, so they're at a disadvantage. One of the advantages used to be having job security.
Right.
Well, how much job security do people feel right now? So we're doing decades and decades of damage to our ability to have a highly functioning federal government that the American people deserves because of the actions of this administration.
From House Democrats, especially if Leader Jeffries begins to take questions. So stay tuned for that. Getting back to you, Randy, as you hear these disagreements among Democrats and Republicans, I wonder what your message is to lawmakers more broadly.
Well, I think our message right now is to Congress and the White House as a collective institution. You got to do the work of the American people. We can't continue time after time the brinksmanship of a government shutdown. The 2019 shutdown was devastating, cost the economy billions and billions of dollars in waste. Services diminished dramatically. You got to do your job, and that does require compromise. That does mean sitting down with the opposite party. And so it's time to do that, get in a room, get the decision makers there, and hammer out a deal to reopen the government for the American people.
Last question, Randy. We know that obviously the government is shut down right now, but that doesn't necessarily coincide with when some of your members can expect their paychecks to come in. They've been promised back pay if they are furloughed and whatnot. But I wonder, when do they start feeling the impacts of this? When do those paychecks stop coming?
I think it's going to be, it usually takes about 3 weeks to go into effect. I don't have the exact date.
Sure.
But
I'm sure it probably varies also.
Oh, it does vary. But important thing to remember is it's not just federal employees. Thankfully, there was legislation passed in 2019 to guarantee them back pay when these political disputes happen and we have a shutdown. But there's millions of contractors out there that are funded by the federal government the same. And, a lot of them will never see a nickel of the time when they're furloughed. And we can't forget about them either. When we shut down the government, it has a cascading negative effect on communities across the country. Don't forget, about 1/3 of federal employees are veterans. So when they're sticking it to federal employees like that, they're doing it to American veterans. We've already seen over 100,000 veterans lose their jobs because of cuts to the federal workforce, rift or bullied into a resignation that they didn't want to do. Federal employees are spread throughout the country. 85% are not in the Washington area. They're in every community across the country. No matter where you are, these are your friends and neighbors doing important work for the American people that are in the crosshairs of this administration, and it doesn't need to be that way.
Randy, Erwin, great to get your perspective. We appreciate you joining us.
Thank you for your time.
Of course. Stay with CNN. We're going to take a quick break.